Zoom window. Yes, we're good to go. All right, let's go ahead and kick this off. First things first, we have a presentation from you, Sean, on AI for PyHC.
Yes, we do. And I am ready to do that here in just 1 second.
Beautiful.
Got the slides up, I'll get the screen share going, and then we'll be off. And I'm going to move around tab just a little bit. I'll be using slides and doing some live demos during this, so just going to make sure I've got that in the right order. There we are. And now let's screen share. Make sure to check share sound. Got a video or two.
Sounds good.
And cool. I think we got it.
Yep, looks good to me.
Got my slides here?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I think I have about 45 minutes of time here, and I was just hoping to kind of have a fun talk here to start the day off. Just showing off how I've been using AI for PyHC lately. It's just a fun topic for me to follow, and obviously it's quickly advancing all the time, so it's a good opportunity to just check the pulse of where this technology is at. And I've done a few cool things with it that I'm excited to show off. Um, Basically, I'm going to spend just 1 second going over the tools that I use so everybody is on the same page. And then I want to show off three things that I've been using lately that I've been calling the PyHC Standards Evaluator, the HSSI Metadata Extractor, and PyHC Chat, which I think a lot of you have heard me talk about before. And then I've got a little bit of time after showing off PyHC chat to just demo it and have a couple of us sit down and ask it some questions and just have fun with that. And then I'll end with just ideas for where I see this going in the future. And so here, just really quickly, I am assuming I can go through this pretty fast with this group. I assume we've all used chatbots of some kind or another at one point, either ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini. But the big change this year has been the shift from just regular chatbots into agents. The people have been calling this the year of agents in AI. And the command line agents specifically have been the really big unlock for software engineering and a lot of the work that I do. Shown here, like Codex CLI from OpenAI and Claude Code from Anthropic, Gemini CLI. I'm just curious, actually, just so I can know my audience. Take a second here to use the raise hands feature in Zoom to tell me who has used one of these three tools before, either Codex, Claude Code, or Gemini. And I'll give people like, 10, 15 seconds to find the raise hand button. And depending on who this is, I've got a short introductory video afterwards that I might cut a little bit short. Hmm. So actually not as many people as I thought, which is kind of cool because now I feel like I can be showing off some stuff that you might not have known was possible before, and that's exciting. I will go through and just I'll play the first like 2 minutes of this video. This was from when Anthropic announced Claude Code. And the other ones work exactly the same pretty much. I actually think Claude Code was open sourced, and I think the other two companies forked their open source of Claude Code to make their competing products, which is kind of fun. But anyway, this will give you the idea of what they kind of look like in action.
Should we be doing like big smile or?
No, what are you Big smile's creepy.
That's sort of what I'm thinking. I'm Boris. I'm an engineer.
I'm Kat. I'm a product manager.
We love seeing what people build with Claude, especially with coding, and we want to make Claude better at coding for everyone. We built some tools, one of which we're sharing today. We're launching Claude Code as a research preview. Claude Code is an agentic coding tool that lets you work with Claude directly in your terminal. We're going to show you an example of it in action.
So we have a project here. It's a Next.js app. Let's open it up in an instance of Claude Code. Now that we've done this, Claude Code has access to all of the files in this repository. We don't know much about this codebase. It looks like an app for chatting with a customer support agent. Let's get Claude to help explain this codebase to us. Claude starts by reading the higher level files, and then it dives in deeper. Now it's going through all the components in the project. Cool. Here's its final analysis.
So say I was asked to replace this left sidebar with a chat history, and I'm also going to add a new chat button. I'm going to ask Claude to help me out here. We haven't specified any files or paths, and Claude's already finding the right files to update by itself. Claude can also show its thinking, and we can see how it's decided to tackle this problem. Claude's asking me if I want to accept these changes. I'll say yeah. Now Claude's updating the navbar, adding a button and icons as well. Next, it's updating the logic to ensure the saving state works correctly. After a bit, Claude completes the task. Here's a summary of what it's done. Let's take a look at the app. So we're seeing a new chat button and new chat history section on the left. Let's check if I can start a new chat while keeping the previous one saved. I'll try out the new chat button too. Great, it's all working.
Now let's ask Claude to add some tests.
There you go. So I'm gonna cut it off there, but I think you get the idea. It can agentically move around code bases and write code for you. It can do all sorts of things, actually pretty much automate anything that can be done in the terminal. And really the big unlock and the main takeaway I think I want to have from these is that code base understanding is quickly becoming like a solved problem in the AI space. You know, in the old days, you know, chatbots didn't know anything about unfamiliar code bases, and you might have had to like copy paste in code snippets to tell it what's going on. But now they're smart enough and have been given the freedom to just move around and read through files like a person would, and can just figure out code bases very fast until they, you know, have an understanding to do real world tasks. And this has been really awesome. The one thing that the video didn't mention that I want to point out, just the way they're implemented, all three of these have like a main file in which you can, like a file you can place at the root dir of any repo to give it context or understanding or custom instructions. You know, in Claude, it's called claude.md. Codex has agents.md. Gemini has gemini.md. But just by simply putting custom instructions in these things at the tops of repos, you can kind of create your own custom agent that's designed out of the box to do whatever you want. And that's what I've used here. Claude Code is what I did all of these with, so you'll be seeing Claude Code for the rest of the talk, but you know, we could easily swap in the other tools from the other companies and it'd work just about the same. But let's start off with the PyHC standards evaluator, shall we? Uh, Over here on the right, you see the GitHub repo for it, and you know, you might be able to guess by the name what it does. The purpose is to evaluate PyHC packages, you know, check the packages against our standards and generate a report following a structured output format on how well it does. It references the standards document, of course, and it just follows the project grading guidelines document exactly like we ask people to do when they submit self-evaluations. And then as just an exercise, I've run this through every single existing PyHC package and put the reports on the repo. We'll see a couple of them here in a second. And this is now the very first thing I run anytime we get new submissions for PyHC packages. You know, people will submit their self-evaluation in the PR, and I'll just generate a report and see if the report matches their self-evaluation. And if it does, that's a good sign. If it doesn't, I can share it and have conversations with them. And it just saves a lot of time compared to me having to, you know, spend a couple of days actually reading through repositories myself and understanding from scratch. I will actually just switch over here and look at the GitHub repo for a minute. So on the right, sorry, on the left, we have the repo. On the right, I actually have the repo open in a terminal. And just because all the magic happens in Claude.md, I will show that off first. And the thing you'll notice is that it's really small, actually. And that's something that I want to be a takeaway from this is actually just how easy it is to build these kinds of things when you have tooling like this. Really, aside from just giving it a reference to these key files, the standards document, the project grading guidelines, and my report format, I'm just saying, given a package repository, evaluate it using these guidelines against these standards and follow this report format. Save your report in this folder. And that's pretty much all you need to get started. So once you have this repo cloned, you can just type Claude and then Claude code comes up. And then I'll just go ahead and kick off something and then just not let it finish, but just so you can see kind of what it would do. And I'll show off some other stuff in the repo. So I'll just say like evaluate SunPy. Why not? And then it's going to think for a second on how to do that. And the first thing it's doing is referencing, I have the standards document in here, which we've all seen at least once. The project grading guidelines, which describes our like badges, red, orange, and green, and what we're looking for in each of them. And see, look, so it's first thing it's going to check is if SunPy exists locally or if it has to clone it. And then it's going to examine the repo structure to understand key files, evaluate the documentation standard, the testing standard, basically all of our standards. And then it's going to compile a comprehensive report and save it in the reports folder. So I don't have to do anything more out of the box than tell it to do that. And it'll just go off and start doing things. And I have this markdown format that says follow this exact structure. So when the reports are finished, we have them standardized. And here in this reports folder, if anyone wants to check them out, I'll actually go ahead and share this in chat. And then boom. Let's take a look at one. It's evaluating SunPy on the right and actually asking me if it can do some things because it will check in every once in a while when it's doing like bash commands or something to make sure it doesn't just blow up your computer without your permission. But here we go. They look like this. I've got a little bit of metadata at the top on which package is being evaluated and who's doing the evaluation. This was Claude Sonnet 4. Now 4.5 is out, actually. But you get a table with the grading badges at the top and a quick summary about why it has that grade, an executive summary, and then the detail assessment is where all the cool stuff is because this just goes point by point and says yes or no. Does it have all these very specific things that we are looking for? And it gives recommendations at the bottom for things that aren't met. But of course, SunPy is going to be like a perfect example here. It ends the report with SunPy is the gold standard for PyHC package development and requires no critical improvement for compliance. I will pick a random other one to take a peek to show that it can catch problems like a partially met badge on community because this package here did not have a code of conduct in the repo, and that is one of our musts. So if I scroll down to the recommendations, yes, under the must, it says you have to have a code of conduct. And then to not pick on one package unfairly, but this package at the time got bad marks across everything because it actually didn't even have the Python source code in the repo. It was just like a bunch of notebooks and things like that. And the reviewer noticed this and said, this repo appears to be a tutorial slash demonstration collection rather than the actual package source, creating structural misalignment. And you see missing all these things. And it takes a long time for these to get generated because there's a lot for the agent to check, but luckily they can work autonomously for, up to, 15, hell, even like 30 minutes if they really need to take a deep dive into something. And then you get all these musts and these shoulds that you should have for the repo to have it meet the PyHC standards. And that's pretty much the whole idea for this one. I we'll actually kind of just stop it there for a second and just say, anyone have any questions or comments on this tool or what we've seen so far before I move on?
Can you give a quick thing on how you built the tool? Did it just build itself magically?
Yep, it just builds itself magically. Literally, all I have to do, I even have this in the repo. Steps to use it are to get Claude code, clone this repo, and then run Claude from the root dir. And just by the fact that I've explained it's supposed to act as the PyHC standards evaluator in Claude.md, which you get with the repo, it all just works out of the box. And I see in the chat here, how do you check for hallucinations? Yep. That's something that I still do manually myself, after a report is written, for example, like if we have a new PyHC package submission, I will go through and look at the things it says it did not get and some of the things it did and just double check for myself, hey, does that look right? But I've done this enough times now, 96 plus times that I've seen it get it correct enough times. I have a lot of trust in this tool. And also just asking it to do a verification pass after the report is done can actually catch some things. But, human diligence. But, as these get better and better, less and less of that is required, for easy tasks like, is this package in PyPI or Conda, or does it have this exact file in the repository? The tool will get that question right like 100% of the time. I'm also seeing a question in the chat. Um, can this work with a locally installed LLM or does this require a specific API? Yeah, at the moment it does require a specific API. I mean, you kind of have your choice of if you want to use any of these three big providers. They all have agentic tools in the terminal, but there's not really an open source competitor with all these agentic frameworks and stuff. There is like a fork on GitHub of Claude Code, I think, where you can use some Olama models, and there's a start to that, but you need to kind of know how to spin up your own LLM and how the agentic tooling works underneath the hood to use it. Anything else, or should I'll give you 3, 2, 1 before I move on. Thanks, guys. So the next one here is the HSSI metadata extractor. And this here is, for our heliophysics software search interface that we're building. I'll go ahead and show that off actually here for anyone who hasn't seen it. And there's this submit a resource button, and this is what I was tackling with this tool because the submission form is quite long, and when you submit a package to our website, you have to fill out a bunch of information about it, including like the software functionality. We have this giant long drop down of all the possible things a package could be doing, all the authors. There's extra metadata under additional data with like keywords and all this. So you can imagine you can spend quite a bit of time just filling out the information for here. And I figured, we have an AI agent that can understand a repository, nearly at an expert level. So why not have it get the information for me was the basic idea. And it works for any package repository. One of the cool things about the form actually is if you give it a DOI or a code repository, it will automatically autofill as many fields as it can using a few different APIs. And my tool here will actually do the exact same thing in the same order. And then even if it recognizes it's doing a PyHC package, it'll go grab metadata from like the YAML files on our website. And I've been using this to submit all the PyHC packages to our website. I'm maybe about halfway done and had to take a break basically since Dash, but just in an effort to get all the PyHC packages on the website for the people who haven't submitted theirs yet, I've been going through and we have like a spreadsheet where we're keeping track of all this. And I've been generating the information and filling in the form myself and then emailing off those submissions to the package maintainers and just saying, hey, I've submitted your package to our website. Take a look at my submission. You're the expert. Let me know if we're representing your package correctly and if you want to make any minor edits. And so far, maybe about a dozen people have emailed me back saying, "Hey, thanks for this." And I made maybe a couple minor edits, but they've all said that I did great submissions. No one has ever said like, "Hey, you really missed the mark," or you missed this feature that my package does, or you said it has a feature that it doesn't. I have not heard that happen once yet, which is really cool. And the main issue is just that it can't actually fill out the form for me. I have a video that I'll show off where AI agents actually can just control a browser with a mouse and a keyboard like people do, but they're so bad at it at the moment that it actually can't get through filling out that whole form. But I'll switch over here to do a little bit of a live demo with the GitHub again. And hey, look, SunPy is done with its evaluation. So now you see about how long it takes to get that done. But in this tab over here, I have the metadata extractor open, and I'll just take a peek into the Claude code here because it's set up the same way. All the magic is in this file. And this one's much longer actually because I'm explaining some things like how to use the DataCite and Zenodo APIs to do the autofill features, quote unquote. And I explain which fields are particularly hard to fill out, like the software functionality where you need to like actually spend a lot of time and make sure you do a comprehensive read of the repo before you start writing things down. I ask it to do like a final verification pass and, clone the repo if you don't already have it, that kind of stuff. So when I type Claude here, it opens up knowing, hey, that's what I'm gonna be doing. And I'll go ahead and just say no, extract metadata for SunPy. And it's the main thing it's referencing is this really big resource submission form fields where I've just taken the form from the website and just numbered it one through however many and just shown, hey, here's all the possible values you could fill in for the ones that have drop downs, and here's the thinking behind these. And you can see over here, its task list it's given itself is looking for a DOI in the repo, and then querying these APIs, checking the PyHC registry for additional information, and then it's going to analyze the software functionality in related regions as like its own special task because it recognized that is particularly hard. And then it's going to create the metadata file and then verify that it extracted everything correctly. And here is, it's just kind of amazing what it can do because you really have to understand a repo quite well to write these kinds of reports. But, we get out something that looks like this, where you have the DOI and the software functionality and all of that. And, that's pretty much the main idea for this one. I again will point out that it can try to fill out the form for me, but at the moment I'm left to do that myself. I'll show off a quick video of what it looks like when it's trying. There are actually lots of even like, ooh, that's really not HD. Let me fix the quality there. There are some browsers that have AI agents built into them now, and there are various tools you could be using. Here, I'm just using ChatGPT and just activating agent mode, but I give it the metadata file and say, fill out this form on this website, use the file, and don't submit, stop when you're done. So click agent mode, fire it off, and it will open a little browser window where you can see it actually filling out the form. And I'll put this in super fast forward mode because it goes by very slowly. And basically after every click, it like has a thought about, did that action go well? And it spends a lot of its time trying to just click inside the boxes and saying, oh, I missed the box by just a little bit. Let me move the cursor down a tiny bit and try again. And it takes a long time filling out the author list. It gets stuck in the calendar widget for a few minutes. And then as it gets to the programming language, it just spontaneously stops. It worked for 34 minutes straight and didn't actually fill out the entire form. So here I take over the browser just to take a peek at how far did it get. And it did okay. Like it inexplicably skipped actually all the software functionality in the related regions and went straight for filling out the authors. And it got it mostly right, but it like missed a field, so that's like why we have this red box around the whole thing. And yeah, I mean, for 34 minutes, that's actually fairly pathetic, and it's so slow and painful to watch it try to do this. So at the moment, filling out the form is just something I do myself. And yeah, I don't know. Any questions about this one? I see a couple things in the chat. Um, Rebecca, thanks for sharing the spreadsheet for open transparency. And it looks like an API submission capability would speed this up. Um, yeah, actually, that's a good idea. If you could just submit this through an API call instead of manually clicking around, you could automate the submission. That's a fascinating idea.
I have another question. So if Claude were instead given dataset documentation, but with similar list of terms and those kinds of things, could it do something similar, or is Claude's strong point really in going through code rather than PDFs?
Oh, I mean, it could go through PDFs and stuff too. I mean, certainly they optimize it for code base understanding and the way that it like greps around and looks for files with certain words and endings and all of that. That's kind of part of the fine tuning, but you can certainly just drop it inside a folder with a bunch of PDF documents and just say, "Hey, understand my company's documents and help me do XYZ," or the possibilities are pretty much endless. They're starting to very closely approximate human workers with a terminal.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So if there's not much more on this one, the next one is what I'm quite excited about the most. Uh, PyHC chat, and this is the poor man's PyHC chat. And I'm calling it that because it's essentially just Claude code, but being dropped into a repo with all the PyHC packages and being asked to act as PyHC chat. Um, you all might remember that I was submitting a proposal to ask for like roughly 300 grand in funding to get a full-time developer for PyHC chat and run a pilot with API credits paid for where we put it up on the website for free to use and all of that. And unfortunately, that did not come through. But I went off and made this out of spite anyway, just to show what can be done with current tools and no effort. And we'll see how far I got here in this presentation. Um, the basic idea for what this tool should be is an AI agent that understands everything we do here at PyHC, all of our standards, all of our community efforts, how all the packages work and interoperate. I had a prototype of this way back when ChatGPT was essentially first released, like right at GPT-4 stage. And I'm actually going to go through and quickly compare how that old prototype worked to how this works now, just to highlight how the technology has evolved and just to show off the differences. But you can imagine the basic idea is just answer any questions about what we do or any of the packages, help install them, use them, write papers. It's a very useful tool, and I actually use it myself all the time. But this prototype that I made, I was not quite using as much. It relied on something called retrieval augmented generation, which is essentially trying to automate the copying and pasting from a knowledge base into the LLM for you, where it just looks at your query and then tries to run some kind of search step where it will retrieve the top, like, say, 5 to 10 files that seem related to your query, and then feed those into the LLM and hope that the context needed to answer the query is in there and get this response back. And that was the state of the art for a long time. You call it RAG instead of retrieval augmented generation, but that's the whole thing. And you kind of have to do this just because at a basic level, AIs only learn things through their model weights or the model inputs, where the weights are just the training data. And actually, increasingly, more and more PyHC package knowledge is making it into the training weights as they train more on GitHub data and packages gain more traction and just have existed in the data set for longer, so the knowledge gets reinforced. But there's still a lot about us that it doesn't know out of the box. So you either have to copy and paste into prompts, but who wants to do that? That's not a magic AI experience. You have vector store retrieval, which is what PyHC Chat prototype did, version 1. And I'd even mentioned code interpreter ing, which back when there was code interpreters, you could start to see the beginnings of AI opening up files and looking through repos like they do now. So this is actually the state of the art nowadays, but back then it was this. And you had to do a bunch of complicated tooling to set it up. Like I had actually a few different bots floating around in the code base. I had one specifically for repo selector bot, deciding which PyHC package was relevant to a query. I had repo prompter bot, which was supposed to ask questions of all of those packages. And there was this complicated setup in the beginning where you had to like break project repositories down into chunks of text and then create numerical vector embeddings of them and store them in a special vector database before they were even accessible. It was just a lot of work and a lot of custom instructions and all of that. And I had ideas for using different RAG strategies or avoiding RAG altogether because when the search failed, the query would fail and this just wasn't scaling super well. But go back to the present and we have AI agents that can just do all of this essentially out of the box. So I'm going to go back over here and now I have PyHC chat just kind of open in a tab, and here's the repo for it again. It's kind of fun that they know what they're supposed to be doing out of the box because of everything said in Claude Code. So you even notice, like, when you fire up Claude Code, the suggested uh, question it wants me to ask is try write a test for SunPy. But, over here in this, I basically just said, hey, you're a specialized agent that is supposed to understand PyHC, and you've been given the repositories for all of our packages. And we have core principles like never just answer off the top of your head, always search through a repo and cite your source before you say anything. And I give it a lot of help for a lot of PyHC general information. We have this stuff stored in files on our websites or in like the standards repo and stuff. And just to give it a head start, I say some key files in, say, our website, or if you want to look at what's happening in the PyHC biannual meetings or the summer schools, or if you need to reference our standards or the FEPS or anything about like the PyHC environment, all these things. And then, yeah, that's pretty much all I had to do to set it up, which is crazy because, just writing that instructions document takes like half a day. And then I have something that's better than the entire prototype I made before. And just to show this off for a little bit, let me see if copying and paste over this Wi-Fi works. Yeah, I'm gonna say, hey, you know what day it is? And I'm demoing you in a PyHC meeting right now. Can you guess which one? And it'll go through and think about that question for a second. I think this should be kind of a fun answer. Hey, that's exciting. Given that today's date is November 20th, I'm guessing you're at the PyHC Fall 2025 meeting. PyHC holds these biannual meetings. Let me quickly check the meeting details to see if I can confirm this. And then I see it looking for metadata files, markdown files that have fall in 2025, and nailed it here at the PyHC fall meeting. And judging by today's agenda, I'm guessing I'm being demoed during the AI for PyHC session. How fitting. And it's saying hi, all that stuff. So, woohoo. That's fun. Let's see. I am at about I have maybe 12 minutes left if I'm following the time correctly.
Yeah, yeah.
I maybe just want to have a minute or two to ask a couple questions of this thing, but I will point out just for implementation's sake, one clever thing I've done is I put all of the PyHC packages in here as Git submodules. So these are actually direct links to all the repos of the packages, and I have a GitHub Actions thing that runs nightly and just does a git pull. And it's kind of cool when you've used Git submodules like this because when you run git pull, it will actually just go through and do a pull on every single package. So every night this is being updated with the latest versions of everything, so it's always using up-to-date info. But yeah, over here in this tab, I have two instances of the thing open. and this one on the left, I asked it, give me some ideas for what I should ask you during a demo, just to get the thoughts flowing. I kind of have one idea, so I'm going to fire off the question, but it can be slow to respond because, it has to do all of this manual perusing of all these repositories before it answers. So maybe I'll fire off this question. Then for people who have a PyHC package in here, if someone can think of a clever question to ask, give me something kind of hard, like if the AI gets this question right, it would be impressive kind of thing. And like the one I have in mind, which I'm hoping this will work, is what's new in PySpeedas 2.0? We heard about this earlier this week. What changed from 1.x? So we'll give it a second to chew on that question. Does anyone want to volunteer a question about their package to ask? Feel free to put it in chat or just unmute and say something. What missions are supported in PySpeedas? Sure, Rebecca asked the question first, so you get to have it pasted in here. And boom. I hear PySpeedas, we're getting some show offs here. I really would love to have this tool funded and be able to just give it to everyone basically to use, because right off the bat, just I know for every individual package, it can be helpful to have quite just a helper to understand your question. And if you can expose this via some kind of API in your documentation website to have people ask questions and understand your package, I just see a lot of potential upsides for that. And I'm seeing one question: what packages support coordinate rotation into heliocentric coordinates? That's a good one, and it's hard because it has to look at multiple repos. I'm actually just going to go ahead and ask that in this tab over here, and we'll have a few of them going off. So it looks like the PySpeed S1 finished, and at some point, yes, it actually did even find like a migration guideline along from just searching for documentation that had like 2.0 in the name, and it actually looked through the Git history to take a look at certain commits that were changes. But here, what changed between 1 and 2.0 is the PyTplot integration was the biggest change. I'd agree with that. Optional dependencies being moved into extras with these, with this syntax, and that's something I've seen before. The mission-specific loading routines changed. Yep, absolutely. Jim, chime in if there was anything wrong here, but I think that's a perfect answer, and it even points you to the migration guideline.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Yeah. And then based on the source code, here are the 31 missions officially supported and documented in the README. And this is actually, that was probably an easy question because it looks like Jim has just listed all of these right there in the repo README, so it didn't have to even look hard. But boom, there's that answer. And then over here, this is going to be looking through lots of packages. I'm seeing basically just searching for the term heliocentric in all of the packages, and it's narrowing in on a few like SunPy, SpacePy, AstroPy. But yeah, this one might take a minute to finish, but that's cool. I actually specifically said in the instructions, some people are going to ask you broad-ranging questions, and I said like, beware, it's hard to know everything across all 96 packages, and you can't hold that context in your head at once. So be careful and search multiple things, and it's going off and trying that. Um, I have a couple thoughts, but ooh, it finished. I don't have to ask anyone for anything else. SunPy is the primary package that supports coordinate transforms into heliocentric coordinates and gives a couple things about why and the heliocentric Cartesian, helio, Earth, ecliptic, blah, blah, blah. But where do you say things that aren't SunPy? Integrates with AstroPy's coordinate framework. Space other packages, SpacePy and PySpeedas support coordinate transformations and all of that, but not heliocentric specifically. And now this is something I'm actually not 100% sure. We do have things like for 2 seconds, I want to go check the PyHC documentation hub / PyHC docs. And if I just search heliocentric, I can see our read the docs documentation, what comes up. Hey, actually only SunPy has the word heliocentric in their read the docs documentation, or ChiPy maybe has something, returns the label for a given data key in the heliocentric coordinate system. So there's maybe a small chance this missed ChiPy if it's doing something there, but woohoo! So thank you for humoring me on that. We could spend a lot of time doing this, and I think it's fun to just stress test it and see how far it gets. But in the interest of just getting through the rest of the information that I had in here, which is really not much, just wanted to cover the future ideas. And um, I'm sorry, I'm checking the chat really quickly because I see one response to what we were just doing. It is questions since heliocentric is not always used. Nice. Deliberately mean question. I wanted a hard one. Thank you. And anyway, so there's like near term and not so near term ideas for where I see AI being used in PyHC just in general. Um, some small wins that I think I could get pretty quickly is leveraging the fact that Gemini actually has tools that integrate right into YouTube videos and Google Calendars, which is what we use to plan all of our telecons and the summer schools and all of that. Literally by like watching YouTube videos of, PyHC telecons or the summer school recordings, and by looking at our Google Calendar. If I had Gemini running the show instead of Claude Code, I think I could integrate telecon knowledge into this thing, which would be a huge win, and could even do things like summarize what happened at the previous telecon, along with telling me, hey, when's the next upcoming telecon? And so we could have like this continually growing knowledge base of telecon info that's just accessible through a chat interface. That would be sweet. And also in the fairly near future, any of this Claude Code stuff can just be done in GitHub Actions now. They have a dedicated GitHub Actions bot, which is the last tab that I have opened over here in this browser. And it essentially just lets you do things like call upon Claude in PRs or write GitHub Actions to have it run custom things. And I think I even had, yeah, just like a 30-second YouTube video showing this off in action. I'll play it because why not? Feedback. Let's be right there. Woohoo. So you could do all sorts of things with this, and I could even imagine right off the bat when I was just thinking up use cases that I could do for this, I could make a standards helper where Claude Code could generate those evaluation reports using the standards evaluator, and then it could apply the feedback to a repo to like open PRs to fix whatever problems or non-compliance issues were discovered. I could imagine having an HSSI metadata updater that continually goes back through and checks repos to see if there's any updates, to see if we need to change anything to our submissions on the website to keep them up to date, or even a spec zero compliance checker, when it's time to migrate to NumPy 2 like it is now, or try out new Python features. I can imagine it going through and checking. I mean, there's already just Pythonic GitHub Actions tools that check do you have the right version requirements, but then this could go a step further and say reference the NumPy 2 migration docs and open PRs that automatically convert the repo to use the newest versions of the packages and all of that. The only real blocker stopping me from doing this is the API usage limits because I'm personally just doing all of this on my $20 a month plan. And, you can only read through maybe, you know, 3 to 6, if you're lucky, full GitHub repositories before you've used the usage credits, and you have to wait like 5-ish hours or something for it to reset. So I can't scale this up to the level of every PyHC package and just have the bots go floating around and doing all of this all the time yet. But the technology is there. And you can imagine in, even just a year or two or however long from now, when the cost of all this stuff trends towards zero and the AI agents get smarter and more capable, we can have all sorts of developer bots floating around GitHub, fixing package issues just the moment people open them, making interoperability updates, spec zero version bumps, and all of that. And I really want to just deploy this for people and have it be just a gift I give them so they have to do less work and get more out of it, and our community stays more cogent and thriving. And I follow these tools and use them in this way just so I can keep a pulse on what's possible and use it whenever new capabilities open up or get good enough for real world use. And yeah, in summary, I'm just showing off the AI agents are cool. I've done things to evaluate PyHC standards, extract metadata, and just have a general chatbot for all of us. And I'm excited where this is going in the future. Any questions on that? I think I'm pretty much up at my 45-minute mark, but thanks for listening.
Nice job, Sean. Does anyone have any final comments or questions? All right.
Sweet.
I gave it the awkward 3 to 5 second pause.
Yep. I will stop the screen share. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Sean. We're using a lot of AI in PyHC. I like to see it.
Mhm. It's fun.
Yeah. All right. So the last big topic now for the PyHC fall meeting is moving into the FEPs, the various reviews and voting, things of that sort. Do we have John? Tulsa's internet held up. That it did. I see we have John Niehoff as well. Cool, cool, cool. Do you all want to start with a FEP1 overview and get that out of the way, or go to the votes first? Give me your thoughts.
I think if we've got stuff that people feel are ready to vote, let's do the votes.
Okay.
And get the stuff that's straightforward pushed across the line. And then we can decide where we spend lots of time kibitzing.
Yeah, totally.
But
Then
I think the straightforward votes are probably 3 and 4, and 6 we may not be ready to vote on yet.
let's start with
definitely
Sean's. Yeah.
Sounds good. Let me just get this open in a tab here real quick.
And this is the second vote for FEP3, right?
Yes.
So I think we had decided that the official record of that vote is people actually putting in a PR review with an approve.
Yep. And I'm going through and finding that PR here so I can share it. Got pull requests. Okay, sweet. I'm close enough that I think I can
Links in the chat.
share the screen again. Hey, thanks. Links in the chat.
And you will want to be logged into your GitHub account for this.
Yep. And I'll screen share. Here we go. So yes, while I'm opening this, if people could follow the chat, we basically need everyone here who is in this meeting who has a GitHub account to go open this PR here. And I'll give one last spiel on what this document is, what we're voting on. But essentially, this is PyHC adopting spec 0 formally. So I think most of us know what that is, but in case anyone doesn't, this is coming from the here. I can actually just click this link and I can have it explain itself. The scientific Python people have had a very great idea to set up a set of core packages like NumPy and Matplotlib and the Python major versions and set up rules for how long that you support them. So support for Python versions can be dropped after 3 years. Support for these core dependencies can be dropped after 2. And you have this lovely Gantt chart showing the support window. And this has been a motivator for some big changes in our community lately, mainly the NumPy 2 bump. You can see that version 1.2.6 is now outside the support window and we're into 2.0 territory and we're now on Python 12. This FEP just says, hey, for these same packages, we are going to essentially agree to follow this update schedule, give motivation and rationale for why and how this replaces our current standard number 11, which all it says is you should be using Python 3, and that's an outdated thing at this point. I have a couple to-dos that fall on my shoulders as PyHC tech lead that come out of this, like how to teach this. I'll be having a web page on the PyHC website that supports this policy, and I'll basically just update. I'll have a place that generates this basically nightly or maybe in real time, so you can always go and reference the chart to see where we're at. And I will send out like automated email reminders or something we decided to put in here. So on the quarterly time ticks where important packages are saying, hey, time to support this version or time to drop this version, I'll be reminding people via mailing lists. And I have other ideas for how to make this even more automated that aren't in here, like using GitHub Actions to automatically open some issues and keep it easy on people. But yeah, the code to generate that chart is just right inside the document. And yeah, the maybe also the big thing to point out is that we are making this a should, not a must in PyHC standards terminology. So you're not going to get kicked out of PyHC if you don't have these exact version numbers being used in your package. But we're just saying people should follow this standard, and for the most part, people just self-electively are. Um, in the PyHC environment, I actually have a big spreadsheet generated of everyone's dependency requirements, and there's only one PyHC package left that has a hard requirement of like NumPy less than 2 in there, and I've already opened up a GitHub issue asking them to go back to NumPy 2. And I think it'll happen soon because this was PyRFU and they even had a version on PyPI that used NumPy 2. And at one point we had to ask them, hey, roll it back to the old NumPy because we don't use that yet. So anyway, that's where we stand with this. We held one vote already and it passed the vote. So we're hoping this will be the final vote that will get it merged into existence and acceptance. So, did I kill enough time for everybody to get on GitHub and go to this PR?
I'd say so.
Because now what I am looking for is, sorry, I'm scrolling all the way to the very bottom of this. Um, if people could just if you are in agreement, let's go ahead and start the voting. The
Quick
vote.
question, where is the actual thing that we're voting on? Because this just has the overview.
Yep.
So
Just
the actual commits and then files changed, and there's also the rendered current text. So the actual code is right in there. It's like an LO pull request.
So FEP3, okay.
Yeah, and I think the best thing to do would be to go to the Files Change tab and submit a review, approve if you approve.
And just as points of order for folks, Sean's made commits and updates since the last vote, but it's basically updating the Gantt chart and updating the code. It's not really changing the actual standard.
Yep. And we might have a conversation about this when we review FEP1, but then there are release rules in FEP1 after acceptance, and I'll go through some very specific things to like tag this with a DOI and get it added to our website and all of that stuff. And that will require like one more small document update.
Do you know what the checks are that are failing with the CI?
There's trailing white space.
Oh God, the same thing I had.
Yeah, I'll help Sean patch that up.
Yep.
Just make a bunch of suggestions again, like
And
me.
actually, was this the one? Yeah, this was just a white space thing. Which, yeah, at one point, one of the requests was actually in the markdown to do some white space changes so that things would appear on their own line and that we could like I mean, Markdown puts a lot of these together into paragraph format when you don't have two returns on the white space, but the way I've broken this out, you could have added comments to like specific sentences.
Possibly tangential, but scikit image and scikit learn are required for everything.
Yeah, the packages that are in play here are highlighted right here, and these are the same packages that Spec Zero cares about. And these are all packages that have themselves signed on with the scientific Python community and agreed to play nicely with the Spec Zero ruling. So this is everyone here collaborating on the same rules.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Sandy, the requirement is not that you take those as dependencies, but if you use them as dependencies, then you have to track the versioning according to this standard.
Thank you for the clarification.
And these are the only packages too that this ruling applies to. I will say there are no extra ones or surprise gotchas, you know. And really it's meant to just be the big, deep dependencies that pretty much everyone has at some level. Yep. And I guess is there I'm looking for an official like abstain option if people don't want to put a formal approve.
I
You
don't know that
could
that exists, but you could probably leave a comment.
Yeah, you could probably leave a comment. Request changes would be the no version of I do not agree with this FEP and I am shooting it down. But if you wanted to just leave a comment saying looks fine to me or something, but not actually give a formal approval, that would be allowed to. But I do think I'm going to wait here until I see a response from everyone on here who is currently on the call. Maybe speak up if you don't have a GitHub account, and then we could not wait for your name. But I
Okay.
assume most of you have GitHub accounts.
All right, where do I click to approve?
And this, you said this is a should, not a shall, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
should, not a must. And yeah, at the top, files changed, and then you get the green submit review button.
Got it.
Thanks, guys.
Nick, your comment pre-commit.ci autofix didn't work since I don't have write access. There's a thumbs down from the pre-commit CI bot.
Yeah,
Is
that
there?
made me a little sad.
Well, that's so
A
funny.
Kiki bot.
Looks like we're just waiting on a couple people left in the group to review.
Yep.
Yeah, as a side thought, whoops, actually put that in the chat. Um, Maybe I could do a pre-commit tutorial one of the next telecons. And by next, I mean next year.
Yep.
Valid. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Can you Slack that to me before I forget that that's an idea?
I suppose. I just volunteered for something again, didn't I?
Potentially. Yes, definitely.
With lots of witnesses.
And
But
the
no,
meeting being recorded, even worse.
yeah, pre-commit is a useful thing, and there is I think Nick, you might have even been the one that pointed me to a tool or one you've been developing for spec zero compliance checking in GitHub Actions. That might have been you. And then Nabil, I think, pointed out that even Scientific Python made their own GitHub action to do this kind of checking.
Yes. So
Mm.
we'll figure it out as a community. But there should be ways to make the spec zero updates, like be able to do like automated pull requests so that you don't have to actually think about them.
Yeah.
As another
And
side thought, it's important to test against the lowest versions of dependencies. And if you have stuff set up with UV, UV has a lowest direct resolution flag or strategy that will set up the environment for you to do that. So it makes it a lot more straightforward to do so.
very nice. And I've been pleasantly surprised by how many PyHC packages just self-elected to follow this because, I recently upgraded the PyHC environment to use Python 3.12 instead of 11, and there were some breaking changes there, but really only, I think, if I'm recalling off the top of my head, 4 packages out of all of our like 96 had compatibility issues or like a dependency conflict and couldn't be included in like a perfectly, spec zero compliant version of the PyHC environment. But that's a lot better than I expected, to be honest. And I think we might be calling the vote at the end there. We have one abstain from a meeting attendee here, but otherwise 11 of 12 have voted. And we are ready to call it. I think I'm ready to. Julie, you good?
I am content.
Well, thank you, everyone. The resolution for this will be listed inside the document, and I think we can call that done there. And I will say, as just a matter of process, I actually do like having the GitHub be involved in the final approval of this. I don't know if we've actually written that down as the process anywhere yet, but I'd be happy to make a documentation change to make this a thing.
I
That's the
like
next topic after Julie's vote.
it.
Yep, sweet.
Um,
Well, should I remove myself from the stage here?
yeah, I'm Oscaring you out.
Boom.
Okay. Since it makes sense, I think, to go in numerical order. FEP for Google Chrome. God, I hope this works. I'm still on my phone spot, so T-Mobile's really putting in the effort here.
Yeah, you
All
come
right.
through clearly enough so far.
Beautiful. All right, I'll go to the files changed and show this way. Let's zoom in a little because eyes older than 15 years old or a thing. Okay, so we've talked about FET4 on and off over, gosh, like a year and a half, maybe more period now. Finally coming to a first vote, hopefully, on it. So as we mentioned, this FEP establishes a new tiering structure to PyHC packages, which will automatically affect all of our packages once this goes into effect. There will be 3 levels: gold, silver, bronze. It's pretty self-explanatory there. Gold would be our gold star tier packages, adhering well to all of our standards as defined within these various FEPs, many of which John will talk about today. And there will be various benefits accrued at each tier. This whole thing came about as a way of kind of marrying the 2 ideas of PyHC, where one is just we're a collection of open source Python packages that are relevant to Helio. and then one that's a standards-based interpretation. So moving right along, the various tiering specifications. It's when I first made this, it was very involved and there were a lot of columns and rows, and now there's mainly just 3. Talking about if they did some kind of evaluation, have they gone through a PyHC PyOpen site review, which is going to be defined in a later FEP after this one, and then standards compliance, which now, instead of being written all out within FEP4 itself, we just say as applicable with all standards, as defined in standards track FEPs, which are the ones that John has been working on. Benefits talk about mainly summer school inclusion, whether or not basically you automatically get an in or a conditional in, or we don't invite you to it, whether or not you're included in some of the things Sean's working on, so the PyHC chatbot or the PyHC environment, getting standards compliance assistance, which is basically yes across the board, but if you're already a gold star child, we're not going to spend as much time on that. And then should conference travel funding ever be a thing, whether or not you would be prioritized. Sean, you have your hand up.
Yeah, wondering if we could look at the rendered version of this so I could make out better. Like,
yeah, sure. Can you tell me where to go for that so I can make this better?
I think it's just the 3 dots underneath review changes, and then there should be a view file in there.
Yeah. Oh my God, thank you. I would have been doing that this whole time to make this easier. Da-da-da-da. The more you know, you can tell that I lead, not get as often. Anyhoodle. So now you can see the pretty table formats of that and what that looks like at each tier for the various things that I've been talking about. And there are some stars for whether or not this is like an opt-in or out, kind of like standards compliance assistance or the PyHC chatbots, and whether or not you actually want to be involved in the summer school because, well, we don't currently pay you to do that because NASA only has so much money. As far as the implementation process goes, I updated this recently based on, actually, I think, Rebecca, your comment asking for some more information on the technical steering committee for this. But the idea is as follows. So within 6 months of the PyHC website being updated, with this FEP essentially going into implementation, packages would submit a PR to our website GitHub indicating what level they think their package is with a written justification on that pull request for the chosen tier. And then within 3 months of a pull request publish, members of a PyHC would review this and assert if that self-evaluated tier matches expectations. After the review, the process is such that the PR is basically merged and you get your official grading tier, whatever it is. If there's a simple majority of those members that are in agreement, or if it's rejected, we'll give you reasoning why. And you can always go back later and resubmit an evaluation to try to go up a tier. As far as who would be on this technical steering committee, so far it would be obviously me and Sean, as well as a few volunteer members of PyHC that aren't on that submitted package because you can't go and say my own package is a gold tier 1. So I just said a minimum basically of up to 4 to 6 total members. That would be 2 to 4 extra people from PyHC reviewing packages. And we would decide who these members are basically at whatever the next telecon is or biannual meeting after this FEP goes into implementation. And then people would stay on that committee for a year and then could cycle in and out as they so choose. General comments: if packages don't submit some kind of self-evaluated tier, they'll automatically be assigned a tier after review by the technical steering committee. Could still be eligible later for a tier regrade. Packages are allowed to move in between tiers. So just because you get like a bronze level to start, for example, doesn't mean you could never be a silver or a gold. If you improve your package, you're allowed to move up. And the flip side is also true. If you were a silver package, but then you just like said, screw all of our standards and totally change your package, we could drop you down too. And within the PR, there's a process for how that downgrade works. But there's always the chance that if you're downgraded, you could go back up again. Backwards compatibility, no direct change to PyHC code, just doing a tier or not. No security implications that I could think of. How to teach this. Basically, this FEP's contents is going to be talked about at all of our biweekly telecons, biannual meetings as topics relate. There will be explanations for all the tiers, how to get a certain tier so far, and so forth. Further, links to pages and potential recordings that explain how to satisfy each requirement for each tier will be made and communicated through one of our lovely blog posts, our very, very active blog post area. So we'll finally have a use for it again. Yeah, I think that's the big ideas proposed within. Do we have any comments, questions? Sandy, I see you're unmuted. Is that because you have something to say or because you're just unmuted?
Whoops, because I was being noisy earlier.
Oh, no worries. All right. Well, if we don't have any.
Oh, just in terms of incredibly timely comments. I just threw in one of the technical steering committee says minimum of 4 up to maximum of 6. It's not exactly clear if that number includes the IC lead and the tech lead or just the volunteer members.
That's fair.
So I would suggest putting in total if you want to include those two in the count. And then the other thing in there is I think it would be helpful to have, and I threw some wording in there of like future FEPs may further define the technical steering committee, may supersede this FEP regarding the steering committee without affecting other standards and processes in this FEP. Basically, I see the desire to have a little bit of definition of the technical steering committee in here, but I don't. But I suspect that's something that's going to take time to play out.
Yeah, that's fair. Do I need to fix that before we can vote on it, or?
I think that can be a sense of the room. I do have explicit wording in quotes in there. So if people want to say, hey, we'll vote assuming those explicit quotes get put in, I'm comfortable with that. But if people would rather, have Julie do a very quick push.
Do we really want to trust the project manager to do a quick push? Not dogging my own skills, but I know where my strengths lie. I'm seeing no comment one way or the other. Should we go ahead and vote? Assuming, of course, the changes from John's comments go through, which they will.
And to be clear, this is vote number 1. Yeah, so there will still be a second vote needed before this is formally adopted.
Correct. I've gone too far. So again, once my page loads, yay, go to the files changed and then do the review.
This is the first vote, so we don't do the GitHub review because that's a
yeah,
one shot.
can we just do it in chat?
Yeah, so I was looking at, and the annoying thing is the chat doesn't thread very well if it isn't like attached to a very specific line of code.
Yeah,
so,
I think I could maybe if I put it in our notes.
So we can do like a thumbs up, thumbs down on a comment.
Okay.
And people can reply to that comment if they have further issues. So shall I just make a comment and let people vote on that? Is that easiest?
Yeah.
I think so too.
Give me just a moment.
In the past, we've just done like type yay or nay into the Zoom chat, and then we've like copied and pasted that into the meeting report and then referenced the meeting report. But I think a comment is fewer steps.
I would agree.
And a little bit more permanent.
No. Sean, did you vote on your own thing?
I did not vote on my own thing.
I think GitHub doesn't let you approve if you open the PR. So
it's like, is that a thing? I guess I'm technically abstaining then.
Yep.
And it looks like we have one less person here. So it'll be out of 11.
So repeat on how we vote. We're not doing it through chat, but we're not doing it through review changes.
Yeah,
no, we are doing it through chat.
We are doing it through chat.
Yeah, because this is the first vote. I guess the second official, we're stamping this into existence. You do on GitHub.
I thought we were doing through a thumbs up or thumbs down on a comment.
Yep.
Right, which is in the chat.
Oh, so I actually misunderstood that one. Sorry. So we're doing a comment in the Zoom chat, not in the GitHub.
Oh, that's what I thought. John, where are you putting it?
I'm putting it in the GitHub.
Okay, wait, that's better. Do that.
Yeah, that's what I thought he meant, that there will be a comment in the pull request and we
That makes so much
thumbs
more
up or
sense.
down that.
I'm glad we're talking this through.
So is the comment there now, John, to go thumbs up, thumbs down?
Yep.
It is.
Oh, this is the voting comment for the first vote. Hey, sweet. Thank you.
All right, there should be up to 11 of these thumbs up or down. I suspect we'll have 10 because where is this comment at again? If you go above John's comments in the chat. Yeah, I put a FET4 in the chat. I'll just copy and paste it again.
Or just click the link directly. I pasted the link directly to the comment in there.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, no, click John's link. Ignore me. Here, I'll put it top of mine. Let's give it another minute. No, never mind. Wait, no, up to 11. Yeah, give it a minute. I don't know how your all's past 12 hours have gone, but my roommate burned something so badly in the basement of this house that I'm on the second floor, and it smells strongly of smoke. I smell like I've been in a bonfire.
I'm glad that was contained to the basement.
You know, she has a microwave in her room. Something went wrong. We all suffer. All right. I suspect because Sunip, you didn't vote on the last one. Probably not voting on this one unless we see something soon. So I'll put 2 abstained here. I wish this were like Slack where you could just like have a comment thread and click down to see. GitHub doesn't have a good one for that. All right. Well, it looks like FEP4 passed its first vote. Go team.
How
So
long do we have to wait before a second vote?
We're going to be reviewing FEP1 after this, and we decide if we like the length that we've been doing, but isn't it 6 months? Or is it 3 months?
It's just 1 month because it's just getting to a telecon.
1 month. That's it. Okay, cool. Why did I think it was so much longer? Maybe because you have
the long
to
wait is if you don't get to a meeting. Yeah, that's the
yeah. So January. Yeah, we could have a vote end of January for the second round of this. Cool. Well, I'm gonna stop sharing. And John, you can take it away with FEP6.
Yeah, I guess. How do people feel about talking about FEP6 versus talking about like FEP1 review?
Are you wanting to hold a vote on FEP6 or do you want to just like have a discussion?
I suspect I haven't had time to do wordsmithing since the conversation yesterday. Was it yesterday? I think it's yesterday. And so I don't think we're in a position to have a vote on that, but I also want to get some clarity from the community on which way to go with wordsmithing that. So I think I'm arguing myself into let's talk about that first, and then we can maybe do open talk on one.
Cool.
Yeah, that's fine by me. Do you want to share one?
Honestly, if you don't mind sharing the screen, that lets me, like, Zoom is just so terrible at being able to see
Fine
like
by
chat
me.
and such when you're sharing. So that is the FEP6. And I guess the first question I have, because I'm going to try to phrase this differently again and see if I get the response that indicates I was clear on it. Assuming somebody is starting from scratch, they do not have a license chosen yet for a new package, and they don't have any restrictions, how firm should the guidance be? Should they be given a list of one possible license, two possible licenses, 10 possible licenses? What is the right number of things for people to choose from, assuming there are no external restrictions? My personal thought on this, the way I wrote it, was that the list should be very short if people have free choice, simply because what we've seen in the past is we have license proliferation. People have a tendency to get cute, and it feels like it would be much more productive to point people at, look, this is the stuff that's really popular and works, so please choose this unless you have a reason otherwise. But I'm curious if people want that to be broader. Again, this is in the context of completely free choice, not that you're restricted by your institution or something. Go for it, Nick.
Yeah, the issue about license promulgation or whatever, proliferation, is true, because like there is a practical consequence that of license compatibility, and we want to be able to take code from one package and put it into another, and then vice versa. Having the same license really does help. And BSD 3 clause or 2 clause, I think, is probably the most commonly used in our community. And even if we don't recommend BSD 3 clause as the only one or the primary one, saying that it is the most commonly used, if that actually is true. So I say err on the side of having a shorter list, but have it be acceptable to have like any OSI, open source initiative approved license.
Mhm. John?
Yeah, I would just second that. We have a short list of says, if you can choose anything, please use one of these, very few. And then have a longer list of also acceptable. I think that keeps it pretty simple and then avoids the proliferation. So, yeah.
Other thoughts?
I had also said something about, a package could indicate whether they're particularly, wedded to a specific license. Like maybe people really don't care. And so you could ask them, hey, could I have a version that has a different license? They might be willing to just slap that on and give it to you as well.
Oh, yeah.
So putting that
dual
as an
licensing.
indicator, are you flexible on your licensing, or no, you're stuck with that one from your institution?
Yeah, like even Jim volunteered that, like, hey, for PySpeedas, I'd be open to changing my license or even giving you a copy of PySpeedas with a different license if you want it.
That's what triggered my thought on that exactly when he said that. He's like, oh yeah, because if projects are willing to do that, that's super useful to know, because it might be, oh, I could use that because they're willing to switch.
And
Mhm.
it's also helpful knowing the vice versa, if they can't, why. I know, like, was it Komodo, Darren, where you have a certain license and it's really hard to change it at this point?
Yeah,
Because of
it's the NASA open source, and that's a really big hassle to change. I was going to also ask, is there going to be like a pros and cons of various licensing included as kind of a reference material in this or not?
So
I know you did
honestly,
that research, but I just curious if that's going to be included in this or not.
I mean, honestly, that is a reason to keep a list short, because then you don't have to do the pros and cons. It's more of a reason why these things were chosen. And I would rather, that gets into duplication of effort, right? Where I would rather people look at the OSI list, and if they have some particular reason they need to think about it, then they've got reasons, and then we can't provide a real pros and cons list that doesn't address their reasons, right? Whereas if they don't want to think about it, there should just be like one or two things.
That makes sense.
I mean, ideally, my hope is that we spend a lot of time thinking about licenses in about the next 15 minutes, and then we never think about them again.
Yeah, because if we say something like, hey, these use one of these 2 or 3, whatever, these are all largely compatible with each other if you want to share code across projects. You can choose these and then never have to think about it again. If you choose one of these other ones, here's a link to the compatibility matrix and issues for cross-license code usage. And you can go read all this and figure it out yourself.
Yeah, and Nick just pointed out in the chat, and just in general, like the OSI permissive licenses are all very interoperable. But if you're having a conversation with lawyers, it really helps a lot to say, no, it's the same damn license. You have to think about it. Rebecca?
I feel like I'm part of the reason to blame for this conversation, so let me comment. What piece? Okay, so agreed on the limited list. But it also seems to me that that list should also represent the licenses commonly used by the packages in PyHC. So of those so maybe some, Sean, maybe some quick analysis could be done. Like, what are some histogram of what packages use what licenses in PyHC? Or maybe just a feel of the room of what's already used and then what problems have been encountered in using those licenses. My guess is that we'd have less than 5 licenses commonly used across. Maybe that becomes the list.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to see if I can generate that table in a matter of minutes, and I'll get back to you.
Sean's firing up Claude.
Yeah.
So it feels like we're good with there being a very short list, and the except I want to talk about as well, right? Like what if you have reasons why you don't have a totally free choice? I want to come around to that as well. And I think we all agree that BSD3 should be on that list. It's very widely used across everything. Lawyers understand it. That I think is a very obvious one. And then the question is just, what are the other 1 over 2? What I had slapped on there in addition was Apache, just because my understanding is that if you can wriggle your way out of NOSA, you can probably get NASA to do Apache, but that's about it.
Yes, Apache 2.0.
And then MIT is the other one that's fairly widely used. And I think the question is really, and this gets into two conversations, so we can do these in any order. If somebody has a free choice, is there a reason for them to choose MIT over Apache? Do we want to try to encourage people to say, yeah, either Apache or MIT, or look, if you got a choice, go with Apache? And then if we say, because most of the argument I've heard from MIT is we have packages that are already using MIT. And then I think it's a really good conversation, how do we not be weird about that? But if somebody has a free choice, do we really want to say you get to decide between Apache and MIT? And maybe that is one of those things where, hey, there's so commonly institutional support one way or the other that it's worth just giving the free choice, and people can flip a coin otherwise. So throw to the floor arguments for, again, if people have a totally free choice, what should they be looking at, and how many choices should there be?
I guess what's the just because I'm not an active package developer myself, I just know of a lot of these licenses. What's the biggest difference that makes MIT not as good as like Apache? question two.
wouldn't say not as good. Like literally the only reason I would lean towards Apache versus MIT is because it makes NASA happier.
Fair. In that case, it doesn't seem like there's that big of a difference. I think I'm still on the side of including it in our very short list, but
Yeah. I mean, it's the most famous one and like the first one that pops up into my mind, I feel like. It seems like excluding it, you would need a good reason for excluding it, in my mind.
Okay, so it looks like Apache has an explicit patent grant. And so there's just a few more clauses in it.
Rebecca's comment, include BSD2 or limit to, what's the biggest difference between BSD2 and 3?
Well, it's the one clause. Give me just a sec, which clause is different? Unless somebody else remembers off the top of their head which one is different.
Downstream packages shouldn't use the name of the upstream packages or say that it's something like that. So it's, you shall not use the upstream package's name in vain. Something like.
I see.
So yeah, BSD2 clause and 3 clause, I think, should both be up there.
Allowable.
There we go.
And
I'll paste the difference.
Yeah.
Again, the argument here is not what should be allowable. The argument here is what should be the things that people are choosing from if they have no other restrictions.
I could see in that case the reasoning for leaving it as 3, just it being the most recent version.
Yeah,
If
should
there's
we
no other
point? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So should we point to BSD3 clause as the ideal license and then say something like Apache 2 and MIT are also up there, like good second choices?
I could be down with saying BSD is the ideal great alternatives, or MIT or Apache. And then we have our bullet points of like, if you can't do those, explain why. Sean, you've been unmuted.
Not to interrupt, but I have the table of what every single license for every single package uses, but it is too much to paste into the Zoom chat. So now I want to know, how can I share this?
Can you share a screen?
Yes, I can share my screen. Desktop 1. Boom. Scroll back over to the right tab. Here we go. Boom. Thank you, PyHC chat. I'm so proud of this. It wrote like a custom Python script and iterated on it a few times to do this, and then went through and checked some manually by hand. But down here at the bottom, here's the summary of MIT is the most popular, followed by BDS3, and then so on and so forth.
I'd say
So I'd say, I mean, the fact that we've had so many of our packages choose MIT indicates there's pressures in that direction. And so,
yeah. I'm also just so happy that I've never seen this information before, and I was able to get it presented this well, this quickly. Like, hell yeah.
Hey, you could copy that into a comment on the FEPSEX pull request. That would be useful.
Ooh,
yeah, that table right there would be great.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
This part. Where's my open tab for FEP? We're in FEP 6.
Can you also just send me a screenshot of that? I kind of want to put it in the meeting notes.
Yes, I can do that, Julie.
Yeah.
We scroll to the bottom. Sorry for all the whizzing by over here. Will this generate? Hey, look at that. It even made a markdown table out of the comment.
I think this is also a good reason for it's fine to just point at BSD3. It's higher up on the list anyway. I mean, a lot of people use BSD2 and they can put that as, well, this is what we use. Do you want me to update it?
I agree with that. I think if you have BSD2 at the top of our also good list, it makes people realize they can use it. But if you put it in the main list, it's going to trigger like, oh, what's the difference between BSD2 and 3? And, it might slow people down.
Exactly.
Because now they're like, oh, maybe I got to go look that up. Oh, that's such a pain. It's like, I don't know. It's providing the short list already helps. So I don't think it really matters if we have BSD2 and 3 on there, but I'm just slightly favoring the shorter one.
I mean, having a list of 3 options already is starting to think about things. Once you have 4, it gets
Yeah.
to be. Oh, okay, so
Are you okay with that, Nick? Yeah, okay,
Sure.
because you're advocating for BSD2, which you're right, it's heavily used. So,
Sandy, I had noticed that you had unmuted like 2-ish minutes ago. Did you have a thought you wanted to interject, or has it been superseded by events?
Got superseded. Don't worry, I'm a talky person, so if I want to say something, I will just interrupt you.
Fair enough.
But thanks for checking.
So we've got those. So those 3 are kind of the, hey, if you've got free choice, take this. If you've got one of these 3, we're not even going to look at anything funny. So then let me get.
So is the main difference now to your FEP just the addition of MIT and saying these 3, or what was it, OSI approved?
Yeah,
Your-
give me just a minute here because GitHub is not cooperating with me and giving the kernel link. Oh, that's really annoying.
what's the name of that site that has a list of all the licenses with like the lookup?
So there's I'm trying to remember. Yeah, there's SPDX, and then there's
That's
also
the
the
one, yeah,
OSI site.
SPDX.
So I will link that. I'll link SPDX if I haven't already.
And also, like at the bottom of Julie's screen, it's that list there with the CDDL and EPL. I'd like to see that list removed. I think that causes additional confusion compared with the list. The ideal, I think, 3 things now that we're including at the top.
So are you saying just link to that category and don't include the list, or just leave that out entirely?
First option.
Okay. So we'll refer to the OSI category, but we will not include the list of licenses.
Wait, what does that mean? We're not having a secondary list?
So it would be like at the top, projects at the gold tier must either use the MIT BSD3 clause or Apache 2.0 licenses. And if you skip down below the bulleted list in that paragraph, it would refer to the OSI list there, but not not that example list right after. So that piece right there would be removed.
Well, I thought we were going to have 2 lists where one is the preferred and other ones are also fully okay.
Well, that's what the OSI list is. We're just removing the IE.
But I think even amongst the OSI list, we still have preferred ones, like to avoid proliferation. Like if you're not going to use BSD2 or whatever, use our BSD3, then use BSD2. So and I think you could use BSD2 and still be gold, right? It's pretty
Agreed.
much the same. So
There's
yeah.
also a catch on that OSI list because they were able to get the NOSA licensed, OSI approved, while it still has heavy limitations on collaboration. So we need to have
So
some
again,
text about that.
read that carefully. A permissive license from that category.
yeah, that's critical because like GPL doesn't fit. So we need to
So
put things that say these are disrecommended or this will get you into bronze or clay status or whatever.
So those 5 licenses in that list is the list of, so OSI has a category of popular and widely used or withdrawn communities, which does not include NOSA. But it does include GPL and derivatives.
Mm-hmm.
So those 5 licenses are the licenses that are in that OSI category that have a permissive license and are not in our top 2, which will become top 3. So having those listed does matter because there is not a single point where people can go and see what we
Right.
find acceptable.
I like that.
Okay.
I see the point.
So if I need to wordsmith that to make it more discouraged, then I can.
Maybe can there just be some kind of emphasis on if you're just in general, if you're not choosing these top three, tell us why. I mean, you kind of already have it in the first bullet point.
Yeah, and that's what it is. You have to tell us why, but it's also, I don't want somebody to say, well, I can't do BSD3 clause, so that means I'm going to go off and do GPL. And I think we need to have something that pushes people into a second category.
Okay. I see it now. Thanks. And we're excluding the GPL. I'm not familiar with that one. Why are we excluding GPL?
Because it's not a permissive license, it's a copyleft.
Okay.
So
What does
there
that
are
mean?
if you use GPL code in other code, there are restrictions on redistribution.
Nope.
And for the record, according to that table I just generated, only 5 PyHC packages use copyleft licenses. So it is very much a minority.
And that's where it would be useful to know, are they stuck using that or are they willing to do something else? I mean, maybe they use GPL stuff, so they are stuck with it, right? But if they're not, then because we can't use GPL at APL because we're not allowed to release with GPL. So
And thinking of how these packages are going to be used, like particularly with the software environments and getting DOIs for those, if we had even one PyHC package in that software environment that had a GPL license, based on my understanding from this conversation, we could not assign a more free license to the software environment. We'd be
that's
stuck
right.
with GPL, right? Which is a
Well,
problem.
if you're
Yeah,
using it, I don't know. It's
compilations like that and this is exactly why it's a pain in the neck, right?
right.
You have to talk to a lawyer to be really sure. You probably can, but
Let's try not to.
yeah.
So we don't want to pay for lawyers.
In the interest of time, do you think you have
So
what you need for this
I
PEP6?
think I do. I think we have kind of agreed on the categories. We've got the big three. We've got then I guess will be the next four because MIT moves up, and then we've got go away. And I need to do some wordsmithing here to try to. I think we need to define the categories separately and then talk about applicability. I don't know. I'm going to try to rewrite this because every time somebody looks at this, we wind up in a slightly different set of knots, and so it's clearly structured poorly. So I don't think we're at a voting position here. I'll do some wordsmithing and loop back out to the mailing list in Slack as that gets changed. So.
And whenever you're ready for it, we can vote at a telecon as the first one.
Yep.
Are we going to say that the GPL and other copyleft ones are disallowed or dispreferred or bad? We could, because it really does complicate things. I would like to have that in there.
You need to make a strong case for it, and so
NASA SPD 41A says don't use non-permissive licenses.
Yeah, we should actually have a note in there that should have been there explicitly in the rationale. I'll try to. I'll see what I can do because I am somewhat reluctant to write a list of bad licenses because
Yeah, that's
it
bad.
might give people ideas.
So instead of having the IE for that list, that second list, you could say limited to.
That's what IE means.
Oh, I thought that
It's
was
not.
an
It's not.
example thing.
No, EG is example.
Never mind. Dumb moment, apparently.
Yeah, IE means this is the list. I mean, not literally, but okay. So then I think The other thing then is, let's see, Julie's already pulling up FEP1, although the issues might make more sense. I threw that in the comments. This is things that we've been talking about process-wise.
Did you want me to scroll to a certain spot, or you just said comments?
Can you share the actual issue that I linked in the? Yeah, so it's number 27.
Yeah, I'll just click that link.
Okay, so that first set of bullet points is things that kind of came up in the initial FEP1 discussions, including that last bullet where we are now, which is, hey, there's an annual review process that we didn't really define. And then if you scroll down a little bit, Julie, into the additional items, those are things that have come up since. And then there's two things that we agree about. So I guess working this backwards, things that have kind of been agreed upon over the course of the last year that aren't explicitly in there is, oh yeah, we didn't really call this out, but Julie's FEP actually violates FEP1.
That it does.
But it explicitly says it does, and says why. And so that feels like something that, rather than trying to come up with processes that are always perfect, we just have a handshake agreement that, look, if somebody needs to violate process, at least say you're doing it and say why, and then give people the opportunity to vote it down.
As tech lead, I am okay with that.
So I guess, do folks have thoughts about that? Anybody interested in Canadian constitutional crises?
I guess I'm the one that violated it, but I approve of my violation.
Good to know. And then the other thing, which I think came out of the meeting last fall, was sort of agreed that the final vote should be a GitHub PR review where you say approve. And then the first vote should be in GitHub somehow, which we just did. And so, yeah, I think, so obviously this issue is staying open, so people should always feel free to chime in. But if there's any of this that people think we either should not be doing or should formalize more, update FEP1, whether it be near term or long term, then shout out.
John threw the SPD 41A for you in the comments, John, just FYI.
Okay. I think somebody I already had, but having it twice doesn't hurt.
I'm going to put a comment in the FEP6 PR about SPD 41A.
Okay. Thanks.
Do we need to be more explicit that that first vote should just be thumbs up, thumbs down? That seemed to work really well.
Yep, we can change that since.
Yeah, I mean, that would stay valid until such time as GitHub removed a emoji react feature from comments, and I don't see that happening, so I think we're safe to do that.
To be fair, you also can both thumbs up and thumbs down and, clown face. So it's not a secure voting mechanism, but, and actually I think I can go back in afterwards and change, but.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, so for now, so we say we're going to do thumbs up, thumbs down on a designated voting comment. I will edit that to say so, and we'll sort of see how it goes.
I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Yep.
I got to jump off to get ready for another meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, yes. I've got to jump pretty quick too. So thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Okay, so the strict common mark thing, we brought that up as basically a, hey, you can violate the procedure. It's not a big deal. There's some loose language in FEP1 referring to an accepted status, which doesn't exist anymore. What I will probably do is I will draft a revision to FEP1 that removes that, and I will open that for comment. And I think that is of a scope that we would not need to vote it. We would just need a thumbs up from Julie and Sean. because it would be a clarification of wording, not a change of process. So if anybody cares about that, then please jump in that thread. And like I said, I'll open up a PR that for people to further object. So I think the most important thing to talk about is we do have this requirement FEP1 that the votes can happen in any order, but we do have a requirement that it happen both at a meeting and at a telecon. You can't do 2 votes at a meeting or 2 votes at a telecon. And kind of the rationale for that was that the meetings were a place where we were coming together in person, and it seemed to really encourage discussion. Most of these we've had more discussion at meetings than at telecons. But then having both votes be at meetings, one was it seemed unlikely that we would ever take 6 months to get something done. Oops. And also that when the meetings were largely in person, giving people a chance to object on a telecon seemed important. Since we're much more commonly doing hybrid or virtual meetings now, the barrier to entry to being at a meeting is lower. So the notion of having both votes be at a meeting seems okay from that perspective. And I don't know how people feel about both votes being at a telecon being okay. So there is a thread in that issue discussed, but also kind of want to throw it open if people have thoughts about that voting process and requiring those to be at different types of meetings.
I like the balance that we have now, because there's this certain officialness, if you will, of having a vote at a fall or spring meeting, and then the secondary being, or the other one, whatever order it is, being in a telecon, so that it's not because I would say more people tend to attend a given meeting versus a telecon, which may not, it might get lost in emails and no, I didn't see the notice, right? So.
I tend to agree, but my one thing with that is there may be something we could have implemented faster if it wasn't required also at a meeting. Like we have a vote and it's, I don't know, 6 months before the next meeting, and we have to wait purely because we said it also has to be at a meeting. Which, based on the number of people actually on the call right now, 10, sometimes our telecons are bigger than this. So it's a thought.
We could also change this to put a minimum time between first and second votes, which would tend to encourage things to happen at one of them at a meeting. And, if there's 3 months in between, then the chances of one of those happening is fairly high.
Any other thoughts from those online?
I will say in general, it has not felt like this is a process where we have thundered ahead and forced things down people's throats in short time.
No.
Is the thing we're trying to avoid, we're trying to not surprise people with votes and all of that, which is why we're thinking so hard about this process.
Yeah.
Do we have a?
All right. So it sounds like there's not a strong desire to change at this point.
We'll just keep it as is.
In the 2 minutes we have left, anything else on the process that people want to bring up? And again, that issue is open, so jump in anytime.
Do you feel like by doing this, we've answered that last bullet on your first list? We just talk through it at a biannual meeting?
The only requirement is that it be on the agenda. Heck.
Maybe that's okay, allowing more flexibility. I'm not seeing a strong push either way, so. All right.
I just realized we actually already run 15 over because we were supposed to have time for debrief. I'm sorry.
No, this is more important than the debrief. The debrief is essentially just me saying thanks for showing up and how we like these 4 days of a virtual meeting. No thoughts? All right.
Yeah,
People just,
like it.
yeah. Sounds good. All right. Well, I don't want to keep people for too long. Make sure to give your thoughts on the FEP1 issue if, yeah, you have anything you don't like about it, or you do like.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks, folks.
Yeah, thank you.
So long. Hope to see some of you at AGU.
Hey, yeah,
I'll be
you sure
there.
will.